Buddy Pelletier surfed his way into the hearts of many, and in the wake of a premature death he left a world of friends and a legacy of generosity and goodwill. His sister, Lisa Pelletier Harmon, talks to Barbara Garrity Blake about the history of surfing in Carteret County and what the Buddy Pelletier Surfing Foundation is all about. This interview was recorded April 27, 2015 as part of the Smithsonian Institute's Hometown Teams exhibit at the Core Sound Waterfowl Museum on Harkers Island.
Big factor here in the Carteret County is the Eastern Surfing Association. We have Betty Marsh, who is in the Surfing Hall of Fame from Carteret County. She was one of the original founders and movers and shakers to get this organization started. And to my knowledge, this is the largest amateur sports association in the world. Actually, surfing in North Carolina has been here for over 100 years. But it really took off in the early 60s. We had a lot of military coming back from other places, bringing the sport with them. We had a lot of guys that were coming home from military service that had been to other places and had seen the sport and had interest, and had the 80-pound long boards. You know, some people were drawn to it right away, and others got into it by watching and observing and seeing, well, that looks like a lot of fun. One of my earliest memories of surfing, and it also includes my brother, and I think the reason I remember is because snowfall here is so rare. I was probably 7 or 8 and there was snow falling. I think that's why I remember it. It's the snow falling, not that my brother was surfing. But I remember my dad was concerned because, okay, where's your brother? And he would hide a surfboard in the marshes along the sound and then paddle over across Bogue Sound and walk across the island, go surfing, and then at the end of the day he would walk back across the island, paddle back across the sound, stash his board back in the marshes, and then come on home. So it was getting to the end of the day, and my dad's like, okay, where's your brother at? And so I remember riding with my dad, and we went over to Sportsman's Pier, which is no longer there, but when we were growing up, I think there were 7 piers along the island. Some were friendlier to surfers than others were. I remember, walking through the parking lot and seeing the occasional snowflake come down, going, oh, this is like magic. And we went and we walked out on the pier, and there was a lone surfer out in the water. And like I say, this was very early on. I don't even think that the Navy scuba divers were using wetsuits yet. But he had used plastic sheeting of some kind and had wrapped his upper torso and had ladies' Playtex living gloves, remember the yellow housekeeping gloves, and had taped them around to seal off, and he was out there in shorts, and it was snowing. He had to be in the water. It's more than a sport. It's more than a compulsion. It's more than a commune with nature and the elements. Buddy, he was born to do one thing. He was genetically predisposed to be a surfer. Even before surfing, his balance was incredible. The Buddy Pelletier Surfing Foundation, the way it started was when Buddy was sick. It was a very rare cancer and very aggressive. They just made one announcement at the contest that Buddy was sick and did anybody want to help. And that afternoon, John Doyle, who was one of the fellows running the contest, came up to Buddy and handed him $2,000. In one afternoon, just guys and girls giving up their dollar bills, their $5 bill that they had set aside for a soda and some chips after their surf session, and said, this is for you to do whatever you want to do. And he thought about it. He said, I know what I want to do. I guess because he had left such a positive impact on the people that he had touched around the world, there was nothing that he wanted for during his time of need. He didn't even have to ask. It would already be there. And he knew that he was blessed, and he knew there would be a lot of people in his position that would not have those resources. So it started out, he wanted to start a foundation for humanitarian aid for people that were in his position that might not have the outreach and the connections that he did. But also, he said this needs to be education. On the pro tour, he said you'd see these kids that at their home break They are just busting it, just tearing it up, and the parents go, there's money in this. And they actually would take them out of school and put them on the pro circuit, dump them in with the pros, and all of a sudden, guess what? You're not that hot anymore. And Buddy said it would kill him, and that he'd be on the circuit and he'd be traveling to France, Australia, all these places. He'd come back. See, that kid that was there at the beginning of the season is now pumping gas, and he's off the education track. Chances are he'll never get back on it. The foundation scholarship we're very, very proud of, and the schools love us because we don't have a GPA requirement, a minimum GPA. We look at grades, we look at the type of classes you take. A lot of students today have to work, and it's not just for pocket money, it's to help put food on the table. So without a GPA minimum requirement, we can look at a student who's been blessed to be able to focus on their studies and they're making straight A's, and then we can look at the student who's having to work 35, 40 hours a week to help feed their siblings, and they're making B's and C's, and we can put them on a level playing field. We've assisted approximately 65 students in getting their college education, and we have a 100% graduation rate.